Hello, I'm Antoinette Lydon from the Oughterard Heritage Group. My talk today is Building Bricks to Connections, our approach to connecting with the descendants of James Hack Chuk immigrants. In 2012, my colleague Dave Collins, after meeting with Marie Mannion, Dr. Gerard Moran, Kathleen Villiers-Tuttle and the Clifton Group, digitised many of the manifests. Later, I got involved in documenting information on each of the 196 townlands in the civil parish of Kilcommon. All the 196 townlands have been documented on the Oughterard Heritage website. A townland is the smallest administrative division of land in Ireland. It's the parish of Kilcommon within the Poor Law Union of Oughterard and is in the county of Galway. We list former names or other names of the townland. We list what it borders and who was the landlord. The information is the same for each townland, and we work on information from the oldest to the newest. This is a map of the civil parish of Kilcommon, and it stretches from Lough Corrib to the Atlantic, covering an area of 171 square miles. My starting site was the Galway Library's website, and each townland, like I said, is set in the same format with information from the oldest until the newest. The oldest information we could find was from the Downs survey, and that's from the 1640 to 1670, and it gives a list of the landowners of the time. Next, we worked through the Tide of Plotman books. These are rent books from 1823 to 1837. It can be found on the National Archive of Ireland website, and it's a searchable database. I would search by location, but watch for spellings of townlands as they have changed down through the years. Tide of Plotman books usually give the following geological information: the name of the landowners, the townland within each civil parish of each county, area of landholding, the quality of land for first quality, second, third, fourth, and even in this area, fifth. The tithes, the rent was payable only by occupiers of 5 acres and over. Landless cottagers and urban dwellers were not included. This is an example of the handwritten page of the document. You can zoom in to make it clearer to read. On the left-hand side is the name of the townland. The next section are the rentees. Along on the top, you can see the quality of land, so first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and then the rents, the tithes they paid for each type of land and to whom it was paid. The tithe allotments was abolished in 1838. Griffith's Valuations are next, and this is a fantastic census substitute, as we have given the names of those renting lands between 1847 and 1864. This is the main sheet which lists all the townlands and the occupiers. It gives a map reference with letters and or numbers to show where the land is. The maps also show buildings. So it gives a map reference, the townlands and the occupiers, the immediate lessors who collected the rents, the description, whether it be land and buildings, national schoolhouse, gardens, the area, and the rateable value for both the land and the buildings. This valuation system was used as a groundwork for the local taxation, which was continued right up until the 1970s. This is the linked map to each townland. So as you can see that it's all numbered in this section. So Michael Holden that we saw on the previous document has the piece of land marked 24, and Margaret Fitzgerald has land marked number 25. You can also see in the other areas the small dots, which are all buildings. The 1841 to 1891 census sadly does not document people, but it gives the number of people that lived in the townland for each of the census years. It also gives the number of buildings and whether they were inhabited or not. It also breaks it down between males and females. Now on to the most time-consuming part of the project, the 1901 and 1911 census. Each section of the census was transcribed. During this project, I documented approximately 19,500 people, with each household having a hyperlink back to the original document. So I worked through 3 documents: the household return, the house and buildings return, and the out offices and farmsteads outside. Each household description gave the name and ages of the occupants, gave their occupation, where they were born, if they could speak English and Irish, if they could read or write. It also gives information about what type of house they lived in and what outbuildings they had. And it also listed their religion. While documenting each family, I noticed that Coleman and Mary O'Donnell were born in St. Paul. So of course I had to do some research to find some more information on this family. I found Daniel, Maggie and Coleman on the 1885 Minnesota state census and an index for Coleman O'Donnell born in 1883. But I did notice that the mother was down as Mary, not Margaret, so perhaps that was a typo. Also, we found an entry for Daniel in the 1883 St. Paul City Directory with an address in the Connemara Patch. Daniel and Margaret married in 1879. At present, I cannot locate them on any ship's manifests. However, the family are back in Ireland by 1887, as Margaret was baptised. There are no civil birth records for any of the children. I have found baptism records for most of the children, so I'm still researching that family. This is the record of Margaret's baptism, so in 1887, so that's how we were able to find that they were back in the country at that. It takes months, if not years, to piece information together. It's not just inputting a name into Google and hey presto, there they are, like some of the TV programs. It does take time. The old age pension was introduced in January of 1909 for people aged over 70. So lots of people got old overnight. I added the link to any townland that I could find an application form for. So this is an example which shows Julia Flaherty applying for a pension in 1916. She states that her parents are Michael and Margaret Flaherty. Her mother's maiden name was McDonough, and there are various notes written on the document. See, on the left-hand side, very faint, there's a reference to Martin, Bridget, and Ellen. Also, it says, notes, see over. So within the National Library site, you can find this information. It's also attached to each of the townlands. But Margaret and Michael were married in 1831. They had the following children: Thomas, John, Michael, Bridget, and Barbara. Sadly, 3 of the children are listed as dead, and they lived in Carrow North, but there was no return for Julia. So information like this can possibly help in researching family members back to the early 1800s. Townlands.ie is a fantastic website. It shows maps, and it's one thing that it's very useful for is to find bordering townlands. So perhaps you know where your family came from, the townland, and you can't find some information on them. But if you search in the bordering townlands, sometimes you can find some more cousins. Another great site is the Heritage Maps, and they brought in a new feature recently that you can swipe from an old map to a new map. So on the left here, you can see an up-to-date map, and on the right, it gives the old 6-inch black and white map. Again, this could be useful to find an old house, or where the old house was, and that maybe in some cases there might be some ruins of the house still there. Lovely to find if you can. Our first connection was with Leslie Thomas from Minnesota. When I got an email asking about her Flaherty family, I was delighted that the information we had documented had helped her trace her family to Comets. Not alone has the information helped her find where her family came from, but it's also created wonderful, wonderful friendships. You'll hear Leslie's story later. Earlier this year, Rosemary Garrett from Blacksod contacted me with a request she had received from a lady in Texas. Charlene had family history from her mother, but had no idea her family were part of the Tube scheme. Charlene sent me what information she had on her family, and with a bit of research, I was able to find Keneally and Davin families on the 1901 and 1911 census. And then with our wonderful network of people within Galway County Heritage, we were able to connect Charlene with a cousin in Dublin. And needless to say, she can't wait to visit. We also have some Facebook groups, and recently if there was a request about a family. Patrick and Mary Flaherty were evicted from Tullivrick in Oughterard in 1879 and emigrated to the USA. Their 5 children, aged from 10 to 4 months, were put into the care of the Guardians of the Poor Law Union. However, 5 children with a Mr. Quinn, aged 20, and a Margaret Flaherty, aged 19, are all listed on the SS Prussian in 1883. Mary, their mother's maiden name was Quinn or McQuinn, so perhaps the 2 adults that were travelling with the younger children were aunts and uncles. We don't know. But James Hackchuk would have wanted to reunite families, especially when the parents were in the States. Again, there's more work to do. We all work together, and each piece of information is adding to the fantastic work that we are doing on each side of the Atlantic. It will continue to connect families, and our work continues. Thank you for listening, and you can contact me on oughterardheritage@gmail.com.